airlocks will be mounted out of the Quest airlock of the International Space Station, using one spacesuit that is on board Endeavour and another spacesuit that is already on board the International Space Station in that Quest airlock. We have temporarily lost communication with Endeavour through the tracking data relay satellite system. We should be regaining the signal in about 15 minutes. This tape we're going to play for you lasts about 20 minutes. So once we begin it, we may miss the initial conversations on the other side of the communications pass. Again, all systems on board the Space Shuttle Endeavour working very well as they are on the International Space Station. Shuttle Endeavour crew enjoying some off-duty time now as they wind down their day and get ready for a busy day of rendezvous and docking operations tomorrow. The International Space Station crew already scheduled to be in their slumbers, getting some rest in anticipation for their part in that activity. Shuttle and station scheduled to dock tomorrow at about 11:17 a.m. Central Time as the two vehicles orbit over the Coral Sea northeast of Australia. Again, the next video you see will be some videotape that was recorded on Tuesday with narration by Dan Bursch describing the robotics workstation that will be used to guide Canadarm2. This is Mission Control Houston.
Here I'm just showing the long-duration crew restraint is set up there in front of me. You see the white foam pads, and what I was doing was just showing the setup of a normal foot loop, which takes very little time. It took about 30 minutes to set up the long-duration crew restraint. What I wanted to show here was just the natural body position, what's most comfortable, where all the forces are just equal and there's no external forces or other forces that you're applying to the body. It's just the most comfortable and most natural position of the body. At the ankles, the toes are actually kind of tilted down about, I would say about 20 degrees, not so much the toes, but just the angle between the bottom of the foot and the lower leg seems to be about 20 degrees, which is interesting. And I just wanted to show you that if you had to spend a long time at a work site or a workstation, periodically you would just need to let go and just to relax and to let your body just assume its natural position, so it's just would be most comfortable for you. What we found during 8A where I think Ellen Ochoa ended up spending the longest time continuously at the workstation, but in total, we were at the robotics workstation about 12 to 16 hours, and what we found was I didn't find any discomfort in my back or in my body. Most of the discomfort was just at concentrating at the displays and just the concentration that was needed for such an extended period of time, and also your eyes just became tired of watching displays and constantly being focused and concentrating on each task, and that just became kind of exhausting, just probably more mental than the physical exhaustion. And what we have found is that when we keep our bodies in a natural position, then we can control the position of our bodies just almost by just slight pressure. We put our toes underneath bars or underneath the toe loops. And here I just showed a picture of Carl just to again show the body's most natural position, and which ends up just being the most comfortable if you aren't doing anything at the time. And as it turns out, I think with the robotics workstation is that when we do put in any forces, and most of the time it would involve either typing or controlling the translational hand control on the left-hand side or rotational hand control on the right-hand side, most of the time the forces we put in, we can easily react using the cage or the wire cage that's around the translational hand controller, and much like they train us on the ground. So we loop a couple of fingers, one or two fingers around that cage, and then we control the THC on the left with just 3 fingers, our thumb and 2 fingers, and it just seems to be very comfortable to react all the forces. Number one, to put in very small forces, a minimum amount of force of any to do anything that you need to, and then to react to forces either with just your toes or on a foot loop, or to with your hands. What we did find is, and you'll see video here later, when we did use the long duration crew restraint, is that what it ended up doing, kind of immobilizing our ankles and our toes and our feet to kind of help place our body into position, and it kind of then put all of the control, forced our back then to come into the equation as far as controlling our body position, and it actually is, believe it or not, is kind of unnatural at this point, because for the most part our back just kind of tends to, my thinking is that it just tends to assume a very natural position, and we just don't use our back much for any type of control, body control, or reacting many forces. Most of the forces we're able to react either with the other hand or with our feet in foot loops. And now it's just coming from the other side, just to try for the initial position of the long duration crew restraint. Just wanted to kind of mimic what the natural position of the body was. And now Carl's going to go ahead and get in the restraint. And it does hold the lower leg very well, but what ends up happening is Carl found himself a little bit too close to the robotics workstation, and there's a couple of ways we can do to control that. So what he's showing is just now his natural body position, not putting in any forces, that kind of makes him close to the robotics workstation. What we did is that we did change the geometry a little bit, and we tried it again, and it worked out a little bit better. But the sense of what we get is then to control your body position, then you kind of lose the mobility of your lower legs and your toes to kind of finely control your body with very fine movements, and kind of forces your back to control. And actually after only about 5 minutes, I had to stop using it because I just started to get a lot of lower back pain. And so that's about the natural position right there. But in actuality, he would be able to any forces that he would have to react, at least for this operation, he would be able to do with his upper with his arms and just very little pressure or contact with his feet, and then with a firm, the way that the crew restraint holds the lower leg is that it does force the stomach muscles and the back muscles into working into something that, and maybe it's something that just after being up here so long, it just feels unnatural to us. And Clay, it looks like we're probably going to lose KU here shortly. How many more minutes does Cato think we have?
We're looking, Dan. You can keep going until we lose it.
Okay. We did find the adjustments on the crew restraint very easy to operate. And I put other comments in a file that I put in the OCA down folder that I already mentioned.
Dan, this is outstanding video, and I think it's going to be very helpful to the people on the ground, especially with your narration.
Okay, thanks. And what we're also thinking is that perhaps it might be useful for a crew member, let's say a shuttle crew member that comes across to operate either an experiment or the robotics workstation for a short period of time, whose stomach muscles and back muscles haven't quite adapted to zero gravity yet. It might be something they would find useful. However, just from our point, after being up here for so long, it just caused some lower back pain, and at this point, I really do think it's just because our bodies have become somewhat lazy, I guess, of just learning how to maintain a body position with very little force and very little control, whether it's just slight movement of the toe and to react forces in a different way. And in this case, as far as at the robotics workstation, it almost seems like less would be better, as far as less control, and allow the other parts of your body to control your body position.
We copy, Dan, and we think we have about 10 more minutes of KU available to us.
Say again, was that 10 more?
Yes, copy 10.
Okay. Yeah, we should be able to get it all in. What I'm showing here, and sorry to keep repeating this, but just a way that now I'm just controlling with my toes, just hooking my toes very lightly underneath the bar, and usually when we use the RWS, we do have foot loops there as well. Now, at that point, it's kind of out of the equation if you don't use the long duration crew restraint, and then if you do use it, then your feet are kind of immobilized, and then your back becomes the biggest controlling, back and your stomach muscles become the biggest controlling part of your body, which is just something we're not used to. And you can't quite hear it on the video here, but Carl and I were just discussing that a lot of times we find the most simple solution sometimes works the best. Like, for instance, if you don't need to fix something very hard or strongly to a structure, then perhaps just use a bungee or something that's a little bit easier. One of the things that we did find, and it's not on the video here, but for the EV arm experiment, there's a reader that we use, and the procedure actually does have calls out to mount the reader on a on a flat surface and on using a bogan arm, and to keep it very firmly on that surface. But what we have found is that it's very simple and much easier, and I think it's also easier in the equipment to just fit the EV arm just using the handle. We just attach it to the H strap, so it keeps it in one place, and it won't go anywhere. And then when we attach the detectors on the EV arm before they're read, you can control it very easy just using one hand to react to force. Say you're using with the other to push the detector onto the reader, and you have very fine control so that we don't damage any of the connectors. So it's just one case where we found that traditional thinking would be, well, you would want it very firmly fastened so you have very good control, but after a while you find out that you can control very well just using your two hands and learn how to react to force really efficiently. We were asked just to show the range of motion with the long duration crew restraint, and it did have good range of motion. It looks like they did add a mechanism in there that did allow the bar to rotate somewhat. And here I've just shown the difference. If I needed to move from side to side, how I could do it just without the foot restraint. And again, this is our findings right now are all dependent upon what we evaluated this for, and it was at the robotics workstation. And within the scope of what we looked at it, how we looked at it, this is kind of our conclusions, is that we found that it did create more stress on the stomach and back muscles, and it's something that I don't think I would use, but again, it may be something that somebody else might want to use that, like I said, a shuttle crew member who comes up to use the RWS for a short period of time. A short period of time meaning the length of the flight.
And Dan, we appreciate your candid comments from you and Carl. We have a question. How would you think it would work when used with the glove box on board?
That's a good question, Clay. We thought about that too, and I've never really used a glove box before, but what I'm thinking is that a lot of the control, your upper body control, you may end up doing just around the glove box itself. Like when you put your hands in the glove box, is that you do end up getting some amount of control in the glove box. Now, of course, it would depend upon what kind of forces that you need to apply inside the glove box. If it's something that you can react with the other hand, that would probably be the most efficient way to do it. Otherwise, you're keeping your body in position. It may just be something that that Peggy or Sergey will have to try out after they're up here to try it with and without the long duration crew restraint, and to see what they think. I'm thinking that you may end up finding a way to keep your body in position just by being within the gloves themselves, and to almost becoming part of the glove box. But that's just a guess at this point, and the best thing would probably be to have them to try it out. the left brace, and there's basically three controls that you have to move in order to move it. What we found is that it did take a little bit of practice to get used to attaching it. Sometimes when it felt like it's clicked into place, it wasn't quite in the right position, but it had a steep learning curve, and we were able to figure it out fairly quickly. I thought writing the instructions right on one of the braces was a good idea. It's anytime that you can put some quick review for a piece of equipment right on the equipment is a good feature.
Copy and concur with that.